Hello and welcome to this tutorial for users of Microsoft Excel. In this lesson we're going to be looking at the subtotal function, a very useful function in Excel. And before we get into using it, I just want to show you something that you might find helpful. Now if I click on this tab here that says Formatted Table and click on the table, you will see we get an additional tab which you will have seen if you'd seen my earlier lesson on creating tables and formatting. And that is if you use the Insert Table option in Excel, it applies automated formatting. One of the problems with that, and if I click on the design option you'll see all the additional features that you get with this function or this feature, is that if I now go to the data tab, look at the subtotal option, you'll see it's grayed out. So applying that formatting disables the subtotal function. And to solve that problem you go back to the design tab under table tools and simply click Convert to Range. When you get that, a dialog pops up just warning you that you're about to do that. Do you want to convert the table to a normal range? Click Yes, and if I go back to the Data tab you'll see the subtotal function is now available. Keep that in mind if ever you find your subtotal option is disabled, maybe that's the problem. So let's go back to my main tab here, Subtotals Practice. The first thing you have to keep in mind when you're using a table with a function like subtotals is that you should have no blank rows and blank columns. The reason for that is that Excel will define the edge of the table as soon as it finds a blank row or a blank column. So in this case Excel knows that my table ends at column I because the next column is blank, and so on. So just keep that in mind. And the other thing you want to keep in mind is that you should have some numeric columns of data so you can do your calculations. The first step in creating a subtotal is to decide what item of data you want to subtotal on. So in this case I'd like to know how my movies are performing. So I'm going to click in the movie column, I already have done there, and the first thing I need to do is sort that column alphabetically. And to do that I'm going to go to the Data tab, click the A to Z sort button, and you'll see it sorts my movies alphabetically. Once I've done that, I then click the subtotal button, and you'll find that on the Data tab, as you can see here, and it's in the outline section over on the right hand side. Click subtotal, and you'll notice in the background that Excel has automatically highlighted the table, and we get this dialog box with a number of options. So where it says at each change in, that basically is the column heading or the piece of data that you'd like to subtotal on. So I want to subtotal on movies. So if I click on the drop down you'll see all the options there, or all the column headings. So click on movie, and then we come to the next option, which is which function do I want to use. It's automatically or by default set to sum, but you can also choose many other functions, as you can see here. Some of the common ones we've seen before: count, average, max, min, and then there are other ones: product, count numbers, etc. So there's a number of different calculation options you have there. I'm going to leave it at sum, and we'll move on to the next section. And here it says add subtotal to, and that's simply one of your numeric values that you want to perform a calculation on. In this case total sale is already selected. I could choose, for example, ticket price, but I wouldn't be interested in that. I could also choose ticket quantity, but just for now I'm going to leave it checked on total sale. I'm also going to leave the replace current subtotal checked. I'll leave the page break between groups for now, we'll come back to that later in the lesson, and also leave summary below data, which basically adds a grand total to the table, and click OK. And you'll see there the subtotal has been applied. So basically wherever the film title changes, so in this case Casablanca changes to Citizen Kane, Excel will insert a row, and at the end of that row you'll see my total sale column, we have the subtotal. And if I scroll down you'll see that applies for each movie. When I get to the very end, eventually you will see there Excel has also applied the grand total, which happens to be $3,333. Now as I scroll back up, if you look over on the left of the screen you'll see this grey area has appeared in the margin, or a margin has appeared should I say, and there's also a minus symbol. And if I click on that minus symbol you'll see what happens is that basically it reduces, in this case the searches total no longer has the detail for each sale. So if I click on the plus sign now you'll see the detail reappears. So you can manipulate the table now by hiding things that you want to reduce the detail on and showing things you want the detail on, depending on whether you click on the plus or the minus. You can also show and hide detail for the whole table by using these numbers at the top here, the top left, these 1, 2, 3 numbers. And if I click on the number 1, you'll see what happens. We basically just get the grand total, so all the detail disappears. If I click on the number 2, we simply get the subtotals for each movie and no detail for each individual sale. And if I click on number 3, again we get the full detail, and as I scroll down you'll notice that even though I had reduced some previously, it's opened them all up again. So by clicking the third option there, or the number 3, it'll open up all the detail for the whole table. And again, if you prefer, you have control over individual movies should you require that. So that's basically an overview of how you apply a subtotal and how you can manipulate the data within the table to show and hide detail. Now what if you want to remove a subtotal? Well, it's a very simple process. All you need to do is click back onto the subtotal button and choose remove all. And there we are, the table is now back as it was previously, still sorted on the movies, but you can easily correct that in my case anyway, because I have a sale code value, so I can click into that column, choose A to Z, and the table is right back where we started. Okay, so I'm going to apply another subtotal now, and this time I'd like to see how the films are performing by area. So I'm going to click into the area column, and again, just make sure you're on the data tab. Click on the A to Z sort, and we have the area sorted, east, north, south and west. Click on the subtotal button. This time obviously in the at each change in, we're going to choose area, just scroll down a little bit there, click on area. Leave it at sum for now, and again leave it on total sale. Replace current subtotal is selected, that's fine for now. Summary below data is fine, and just click OK. And there we get, as we did before, a subtotal applied, but this time obviously the area column is the relevant piece of data, and you can see the subtotal for each area as I scroll down, and again the grand total at the bottom. What I'd like to show you here is that you can apply additional subtotals if you want to. So at the moment I've used the sum function to work out the total, but I'd like to add the average as well, work out the average of each sale. So let's just go back to the subtotal option again, and here what I'm going to do is leave it at area but change the sum to average. And the only thing I need to change at the bottom is make sure there's no check in the replace current subtotal option. You'll notice when I do that the summary below data is greyed out because that's already applicable, so you can't remove that obviously. Simply click OK, and you'll see I now have my average has been added. And obviously as I scroll down you'll see it applies to each area section. And at the bottom we also get a grand average and a grand total. If you look over on the left now you'll notice that my numbered filtering options go up to number 4. So if I now click on the first one, we'll see what that does. Well, it just shows us the grand average and grand total. The second one shows us the areas, but only, you'll notice, the totals, not the average, except for the grand average. If I click on the third option, we then get the average and total for each area, but we don't get the detail. And the fourth option, as you may have guessed, is the full detail. And over in the margin again you'll see you have the option to control individual parts of the table by clicking the appropriate minus symbol. So if I click that third one there, you'll notice it hides the detail. If I click the second one, it hides the average. So you can show and hide detail as you want. Okay, so let's say I've finished with my analysis of my average and total here, and again I want to remove that, and all I need to do is click the subtotal button and just click on remove all, and again we're back to our unsubtotal table. If I want to return it to its original state, I could click in sale code and sort it again A to Z. You can also apply subtotals to 2 columns if you want to simultaneously. So what I'm going to do here is first of all click on the sort button. So rather than use the A to Z, Z to A sort buttons, click on the sort button, and that allows me to apply multiple levels of sorting. And what I want to do here is first of all sort on the movie column and then sort on the area column and have a subtotal calculation performed on both of those columns at the same time. So first of all I want to sort by movie, so let's select movie in the sort by option. Don't need to change anything else there. Click add a level and then sort by area, so just click area. No more changes to be made there. Make sure there's a check in my data has headers, otherwise it will sort the column headers as well, which is a bit annoying. Click OK and you'll see there that first of all the table is sorted by movie, so that's the primary sort, and the second sort is on area. So with that applied, click on the subtotal button, and first of all I want to apply my movie subtotal, so we click in movie for each change in. I'm going to use the sum function. Total sale is fine, and I'm going to select replace current subtotal. Even though there isn't one available, it's good practice to make sure that's applied if you're just applying a new subtotal. I'll leave a summary there, click OK, and as you've seen before there we get the subtotal applied to the movies, and I need to now apply my second subtotal for the area, so I go back to the subtotal button again, make sure we have area selected. If I scroll down we'll find area, leave sum again, make sure total sale is selected, and this time take the tick out of the replace current subtotals box. Click OK, and you'll now see we have two subtotals. So we have an area subtotal and we have a movie subtotal, but you'll notice within the movie subtotal it's subdivided by area. So there's our total for Casablanca, for example. The Casablanca performance in the south is $40 and north is $123. Now there's not enough data really to make it perhaps significant here, but it's just for illustrative purposes so you can see how it works, and that you can apply subtotals on more than one column. And as I scroll down you'll see how the subtotals apply to the movie and the area in the same way. And as I get right down to the bottom, eventually we'll get there because there's a lot more data, and you'll see again we get the grand total for all the movies. You'll also notice again we have four options for filtering. We know what the first three do. They are basically virtually no detail, just the grand total. Second one is a little bit more, but you'll notice all we get there is the movies. If we go to the third one, we then get the movies plus the area, and the fourth one, as I'm sure you're aware by now, is the full detail view. So again, you can manipulate each part of the table as I've explained before, depending on how you want to view it. Now when it comes to printing a table like this, you might not want to view the whole detail. Maybe you've just been asked to show a summary of the data, and so let's say I've applied my subtotals to movie and area here, and my boss just wants to see just the summary, not the detail. I would click on the third option there for filtering, so all we see is the area totals and the movie totals, no detail. And before I print I might decide that there's a number of columns here at the moment that are redundant with nothing in them. So if I select columns C, D, E and F for example, right click, I could choose to hide those columns for now. Let's go to File, go to Print, and if I just zoom into the page there, you'll see as I scroll down that it's basically compressed the spreadsheet so that whoever's viewing this can see very simply how each movie is performed, and it's performed by area. So it's a nice easy way of using subtotals to simplify a complex table and present essential information as requested. So I'm just going to press the escape key to come out of print preview. Obviously my columns are hidden, and to unhide those just select, in this case, B and G. In other words, the columns either side of the hidden columns. Right click, unhide, and there we have the table returned. But what I'm going to do here is show you the page break feature on subtotals. So I'm just going to click the subtotal button and remove all the subtotals for now, and I'm just going to apply one subtotal on the movie column. It's already sorted on the movie column as a primary sort, so I don't need to make any changes there. Simply go to subtotal, make sure that movie is selected, and use sum function again. Total sale is fine. This time I'm going to apply page break between groups, and we'll see what happens there. Just make sure replace current subtotal is selected and click OK. So you'll see there we get a dashed line or dotted line between each movie subtotal, indicating that each movie will be printed onto a separate page. So let's see how that appears on print previews. If I go to File and Print, we'll see on the preview that on page 1, if I just zoom out briefly, we have everything up to area, but the problem there is I don't seem to have my total information. So what I might do here is actually change the orientation to landscape, and then we get the ticket price, total sale, etc. And obviously, most importantly, we can actually see the subtotal value, which is what we do need to see. And you'll see I have 12 pages of data, and as I scroll through there, you'll see each movie has its own page with the subtotal information. So again, depending on how you want to analyze your data, you have these options available. So let's just press the escape key one more time, and we'll go back and finally just remove that subtotal, remove all, and maybe just return the table to its original form, again by clicking the cell code column, click A to Z, and there we go, right back where we started. So I hope you found some things in there that are useful and you can apply to the spreadsheets that you're working with. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.